Hey, what's up, everybody? I want to welcome you to another episode of the DREAMERSPRO Daily Recap, where we give you a recap of all of the hot topics that we covered that day. You can catch them in their long format and also catch it fully streaming for free on Apple Podcasts. I've been having a very rough 2 weeks or so, ever since the James Harden trade went down. Initially, when that trade went down, I had a lot of questions about it, and I was quickly able to come to the realization that there was no way that all four of these guys were going to be able to work in that starting lineup, especially Russell Westbrook and James Harden, given the fact that they have, to some extent, redundant skill sets, basically meaning both of these players needed the ball in their hand. Now, you know what's interesting? You know what is interesting? I realize this is the follower. It's not the follower nation. Follower era? But, people always been following other people for a long time. But what I've noticed is that there are people that just cannot help but twerk it up for celebrities. They just can't help it. I said about 2 or 3 games into this experiment that either Russell Westbrook or James Harden needed to come off the bench. Predominantly, I was saying James Harden. Then all of a sudden, when Zach Lowe says it, and this person says it, and that person says it, all of a sudden now it becomes this big idea, and they're like, "No, you never said that. You never." I'm like, "What is with y'all? This incessant need to constantly twerk it up all over the place for celebrity, especially dudes. I don't understand it." But anyway, I was one of the people that came out there and said that I believe that one of these guys needs to go to the bench. And I was actually advocating for James Harden to go to the bench, given the fact that Russell Westbrook can push the pace, he can attack the defense, he can play defense, he can offensive rebound. So I said that needed to be a decision that needed to be made. So what happened yesterday, after we had finished shooting our shows, Mitch, who works with us, he sent me a piece of news on our WhatsApp group, and he goes, and the news essentially goes, Russell Westbrook has decided to opt to go to the bench. And I was like, wait, what? And we went out there, we did a live, and I was absolutely ecstatic to hear that news. Absolutely ecstatic, because I said now the Clippers actually have a chance at winning something this season, given the fact that now they've decided to make this adjustment. And then this morning I came across the clip, before I even get to the game last night, of Ty Lue reacting to Russell Westbrook making that decision. So for those of you who didn't hear that, we want to play that.
Hey Ty, were you anticipating Russ reaching out to you, or was that a complete surprise? And what was your reaction when he did?
It was a complete surprise, but it doesn't surprise me because he's a winner. He wants to win, and so. But I wasn't looking forward to it, and so it just kind of happened, and we'll see what it looks like tonight.
Thank you.
So you heard what Ty Lue had to say. Now, I'm going to confess I did not watch the game. The reason I didn't watch the game, I'm going to reiterate it for you guys here today. Again, I'm in the UK right now. Hence the reason you see this change up of a background. I will be back to our normal studio in a few months, but it was pretty late. That game was coming on at 3:30 in the morning, and there was no way in hell I was going to stay up to watch that game at 3:30 in the morning, knowing that I had to do some work today. But I did see the highlights. I saw the highlights, and the Clippers ended up winning a very, very close game. And in that fourth quarter, it was kind of like this tug of war, this back and forth, where these guys had to execute down the stretch. And ultimately, James Harden ended up hitting the 4-point play that ultimately ended up sealing the victory for the Clippers in that game. Now, if I quickly look at the box score, here's what I noticed immediately. Kawhi Leonard scored 26 points in that game to lead the team. A lot of people are saying, "Oh, it's Kawhi Leonard wash." I'm like, these are people that accuse me of not knowing basketball. They're talking about it's Kawhi Leonard wash, when clearly their offense had been totally destroyed. But Kawhi Leonard went back to his usual efficient self. Yesterday, he shot 50% from the field, 50% from the three, 87.5% from the free throw line. He scored 26 points, got you 8 rebounds, 2 assists, 5 steals. Kawhi Leonard can't play defense. He got 5 steals and 1 block with only 3 turnovers. Paul George also played well, although he wasn't as efficient. Paul George shot 36% from the field, 40% from the three. He took a high volume, attempting 10. He made 4. That's still a very high volume. Nevertheless, he hit 40% of them. In this NBA, that's a good percentage. He made 100% of his free throws. He did get you 8 rebounds, so those 2 guys were able to contribute 16 rebounds. That's very good. 3 assists. He only had 3 turnovers and 2 steals. Then you look at Terrence Mann, who was the guy that they opted to put into the lineup. For those of you who may not be aware, the reason Ty Lue elected to insert Terrence Mann into the lineup is for the simple reason. He said, number one, he likes the versatility that Terrence Mann provides his team. Number 2, he said that he didn't want to wear down his best perimeter defenders in Kawhi Leonard, in Paul George at the beginning of games. So he said he will start Terrence Mann, given the fact that Terrence Mann can space the floor, and you can put him on those quicker, faster point guards and other guys like that. That is the primary reason they elected to start Terrence Mann, and obviously he earned that starting position. He didn't really score well. He only had 1 point, but nevertheless, they were able to get a victory, and that's all I care about. Now, if we look at James Harden, who also got the start, he shot 72% from the field, which is excellent, 50% from the three, 85.7% from the free throw line. He got you 9 rebounds, which is more than Kawhi Leonard and Paul George on an individual level. He got you 7 assists. Now, get this. Here's the good part. He only had 3 turnovers. Only 3 turnovers. That's exceptional. You dish out 9 assists, 3 turnovers. That's a pretty good turnover ratio to assists. Then you look at Russell Westbrook, who came off the bench. He had 8 points. He shot 22%, 33% from the three-point line. But guess what? The most important stat of this game is that they won. And I can almost guarantee you if Russell Westbrook had 30 points, had he started the game and the Clippers lost, no one would care. To me, the only thing that matters is that the Clippers won, period. That's it. They were able to execute down the stretch. The Houston Rockets are not as bad as people thought they were. They had lost, I think, their first 3 games of the season, and they went on to win 6 games in a row. No one is making enough noise about the excellent job that Ime Udoka is doing with the Houston Rockets. We need to pay more attention to Ime Udoka and give him his flowers because he's doing a fantastic job now that he's been given a second chance to coach an NBA team. On the Clippers side, listen, I think this is the step in the right direction. Obviously, they're going to have a lot of things to iron out. But this starting lineup, based on the highlights that I saw, again, I did not see the game for obvious reasons. The offense looked to run a little bit better. It looked to run a little bit better. Their best players were in a groove, although Paul George didn't shoot as well. But their best player, Kawhi Leonard, was back to his old efficient self. And I think that's the way the offense should run. Now, the thing that James Harden gives you in the starting lineup is that he gives you legitimate spacing. And he is a legitimate scorer. And that's something maybe Russell Westbrook wasn't. Russell Westbrook could be hit or miss. Now, he wouldn't hurt the team with his three-point shooting again because he didn't attempt a lot of threes, but James Harden is the better three-point shooter. So they got better from a shooting standpoint. Playmaking stayed the same. I came across an article this morning that I didn't want to pay too much attention to. It was from The Athletic, where they said essentially the reason that the Clippers went out there to make this trade was ultimately to remove Russell Westbrook out of the starting lineup. That's what that article was alluding to. I don't know this for a fact. The reason I'm saying that is because Russell Westbrook was the one that elected to come off the bench. Now, unless these people that wrote that article are fortune tellers, or maybe they had direct contact with Russell Westbrook, it doesn't make any sense because Russell Westbrook was the one that proposed the idea to come off the bench. To me, listen, I think it was a very good win. I think this is something to build on. There's still a lot of work, but I 100% like the team way more than I did before when they had all 4 of these guys in the starting lineup. Now I can feel comfortable about this team, not knowing that now they have to go through the same growing process of every other team trying to come together and build continuity throughout the course of a regular season. So to me, I was absolutely excited, and hopefully the Clippers are able to keep it up. And it seems like the organization finally did the right thing, whether if it was someone that whispered it in Russell Westbrook's ear or he did it all on his own volition. This topic is something that I've been thinking about from afar over the last 2 weeks. Here's what I've been thinking. As you guys know, Shannon Sharpe has turned into arguably the biggest star in sports media right now in terms of somebody talking sports. He's at the top. Shannon Sharpe, if you look at the top in the independent space, is Shannon Sharpe. Before I would have said Pat McAfee, but Pat McAfee went the corporate route, so it has to be Shannon Sharpe. In the top 10, Shannon Sharpe in the sports category has 2. Both of his podcasts are in the top 10, and he has the number 1 sports podcast in the United States, if I'm not mistaken, at least in that category. Shannon Sharpe has been he's been a tour de force in the sports world, and to me, given all of the success he's been having, is one of the reasons that I was absolutely confounded when I found out that Fox Sports FS1 was going to let him walk. I simply could not believe that Undisputed and these guys were willing to let Shannon Sharpe walk away, given the caliber of talent that he was. I just couldn't believe it. You don't let a talent of this magnitude walk out of the door. The effects of his departure from that network have been profound as it pertains to Undisputed. You see, when Shannon Sharpe used to be on Undisputed with Skip Bayless, they were getting about 168,000 live viewers a day, but ESPN was still getting around 330, 340, some days 400. They were always tripling the audience. Ever since Shannon Sharpe's departure from FS1, they have been absolutely floundering. And some days, ESPN First Take is getting 9 times the audience size that that Undisputed Live is getting. It's absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. And what happened was, I was actually listening to a show from one of friends, one of the friends of the channel, Marcellus Wiley, who we're looking to bring on before Christmas. And he did a show that was reacting to some comments that It Is What It Is from It Is What It Is with Cameron Mace. These are people that I grew up listening to, man. If y'all see this video, man, I was huge fans of these. I grew up to Mace and all these guys. But anyway, they had $1 million worth of game on the show, right? And essentially what happened was they were kind of reacting to what they were seeing take place on Undisputed with Skip Bayless and this new iteration of what they were trying to do. So what we want to do is we want to play what they were saying on It Is What It Is. And I want you guys to take a listen to the synopsis that these guys put forward on why they think Skip Bayless is currently struggling. So for those of you who didn't hear that, take a listen to what they had to say on It Is What It Is.
How do you feel about this route that Skip is taking?
I think Skip is an old head that's just trying to find a way out here, you know. I just think he's just trying to find a way out here. I just seen him on a Instagram post where he was basically begging for somebody to come work with him. I would love for him to be my partner, and I would, but I don't know, I don't really get Skip and Young Money, but shout out to Young Money. They on TV, they doing their thing. So
Skip is reaching, bro. Like, I ain't gonna hold you. Skip is reaching,
Skip
bro.
is reaching
no
on
disrespect to Yellow.
Shamgar.
No disrespect to Yellow Beezy or none of that. Skip, like, I think what's going on is that Skip, and I'm gonna pat ourselves on the back. Like us came into the space and started shaking up. And then Stephen A is still #1 on First Take as far as ratings is concerned. And Skip in the back of his brain is like, that's my show. And Shannon ended up leaving Skip. So now Skip is trying to figure out who I could get. In the offseason when he wasn't working, he's like, oh, I'm getting Richard Sherman, or I got Michael Irvin, or I got this person, or matter of fact, every Friday Lil Wayne is coming on. No disrespect to Lil Wayne, that's my bro too. But I think Skip is such a panic that he's like, yo, who's hot? What's going on? Yellow Beezy? Period.
I don't care who Skip get. What athlete, what's the name? It's a new sound in town. It's cultural impact. This cultural impact that's taking place. People want to hear a different outlook on sports. That's why y'all doing y'all thing. People like Gil, it's because it's like they tired of that same old shit here for decades, man. The same dry stuff. People that's not connected to the culture, a lot of times. Some people that never played ball. You know what I'm saying?
No, the whole thing is I'm totally agreeing with you, but Skip knows that as well.
Yeah,
so he's trying to get whoever's hip in his brain.
But just because they hip, they don't mean they're going to connect with culture.
That's the point.
That's what I was about to say.
Just because you black, don't mean you connect.
That's a fact.
It ain't.
Just because you're on TV every day don't
mean
you
nothing.
connect.
Nobody. Why would somebody want to listen to you and listen to your take? It's your take. Do you know what you're talking about? Mixed with some humor? Is it real? Is it raw? That's what people are looking for right now.
The difference is we pushing authenticity.
That's different.
Mm-hmm.
So how we talk and how we represent the sports, you know what I mean, is from a regular human, like barbershop talk, how we talk, how we just talk and we debate. These corporate, they got the questions already set up for you. They got the Cowboys is the biggest team, so we always got to talk about the Cowboys. Oh, this is this way, so we always got to do it this way. This is it. That's why all the got fired.
Yeah,
they fired everybody.
So you heard what they had to say in that soundbite, and I think that they make a lot of good points. Here's what I think, and I'm going to get into an article that I got from Front Office Sports. What I think is this. You know how I mentioned at the beginning of the show that they were undisputed when Shannon Sharpe was there, they were getting about 168, 170,000 viewers a day. And then all of a sudden when he leaves, you see this major bump on ESPN First Take, and then the numbers slip at Undisputed. I'm beginning to think that, it's going to sound crazy when I say it, I'm beginning to think that Skip Bayless was holding back Shannon Sharpe. Now, Skip Bayless is the one that gave Shannon Sharpe the opportunity. Shannon Sharpe has said this on numerous occasions. But if I'm looking at the results of what it is, I definitely think that Skip was holding back Shannon to a certain degree. The other reason I feel that way is if you look at how they perform in the independent space, it's a laugh show. It's a joke-a-thon, an absolute joke-a-thon. Go look at Shannon Sharpe's podcast with Club Shay Shay and Nightcap, and then go look at the Skip Bayless show. It's even laughable. And for Skip Bayless as someone who's on television, to not even be able to compete in the independent space, it is telling. Now, I want to get to an article that I got from Front Office. Is it Front Office Sports? Yes, it's from Front Office Sports, and it was written at the end of September. It said, Shannon Sharpe, first take would still beat Undisputed without Stephen A. Smith. It then continues on. Shannon Sharpe is throwing in the gauntlet to Skip Bayless and the new castmates of FS1. Now that he's joined forces with Stephen A. Smith and Motley Cameron on ESPN's First Take, Shannon Sharpe says Bayless and Undisputed Live will have to swallow their pride and accept finishing a distant second in the ratings race. The ESPN show averaged 726,000 viewers last Monday, while FS1 Undisputed brought in 162,000. That was up from 48% year over year from the comparable episode in 2022. On Tuesday, September 19th, First Take pulled in 620,000 viewers. On Undisputed brought in 114,000. That was up 43% year over year. First Take just posted its 14th consecutive month of year-over-year growth, while September's viewership growing 18% to 500,000 average viewers. Even if Smith leaves First Take, Sharpe said he and ESPN will still beat his former on-air partner Bayless in the ratings. During his appearance on the Stephen A. Smith show, Sharpe called out Bayless and his revamped Undisputed cast, including Pro Football Hall of Famer Michael Irvin, Keyshawn Johnson, and Richard Sherman. He said, y'all not going to be better than me and Stephen A. That's not going to happen. I promise you, that's not going to happen. Ever. Sharpe declared. Now, if Stephen A. Smith says, Shannon, I want to go in a different direction, you are still not going to beat me, because Stephen A. is that dude. If Stephen A. ever decided to leave and turn in the reins to me, y'all know that I'm that dude. I'm him. Now the problem y'all got is y'all got two of hims to go up against. Smith acknowledged Sharpe could succeed him on the ratings. Yes, so basically the article goes on to say that, and there's been other days when Shannon Sharpe and these guys have brought a record-breaking numbers when we're talking about 800,000, 900,000 viewers on a particular day. It's been an absolute bloodbath when we're talking about the competition. And to me, I think that they made a major mistake in letting Shannon Sharpe go, and they're seeing it now. Shannon Sharpe is a flat-out star, period, end of story. Period, end of story. He has this magnetic personality. He is naturally funny. Obviously, he has the credentials of being a Hall of Fame NFL tight end, so he's accomplished in his field, so he's going to get a lot of respect from athletes and people listening to him talk about football. But he just has the it factor. Whatever it is, he has it, and he is showing that he's able to bring in audience, especially on days he appears on ESPN First Take, which are Mondays and Tuesdays. If you go look at the ratings, there's a major spike in viewership numbers when Shannon Sharpe shows up on Mondays and Tuesdays, and is a pretty noticeable dip in viewership the days he's not on the show. And the only person we could attribute that to is him, which means that Shannon has a very, very big audience that's been following him. And to me, that is powerful. I personally believe, I could be wrong, this is what I just honestly believe from afar, I believe Shannon Sharpe in the next 10 years is going to make more money than he ever made as an NFL player. This is what I truly believe. I think he's one of the hottest things in sports media. Him, Stephen A. Smith, of course, and then you have other guys coming in from different angles, like It Is What It Is. You have, of course, Steven Jackson and Matt Barnes, and you have so many other established names, Gil's Arena, and all of these guys. They're doing their thing, right? But for me, I think we're beginning to see that. A lot of people have been even questioning, some of the moves that Skip Bayless has been making in terms of trying to bring in Lil Wayne. Some people have talked about why is he wearing a chain, trying to appeal to a younger audience. And to me, the thing that's most surprising about this is this was never a conversation when Shannon was on the show. It was almost as if Shannon was covering up for so many deficiencies on Skip's part. Now, it is important that I mention Skip Bayless is good at what he does in terms of constructing a show. He has the resume to prove it at ESPN and FS1. He revived that network. So we're not saying that Skip Bayless is not good at what he does. What we're noticing is that there's this drop-off ever since Shannon left, and they brought in all these other personalities. That's what's surprising. It wasn't as if they replaced Shannon with one person. They replaced them with an amalgamation of talent. You got Richard Sherman, you got Keyshawn Johnson. On some days you got Paul Pierce, you got Rachel Nichols, you got who are some other people that they have a lot of different people like Lil Wayne in a certain extent. Well, Shannon Sharpe was the only one. He was the one performing all of those roles, and they had higher ratings. So what does that really say? To me, man, I think if you're in a position of FS1, there's no way you let talent like that walk out the door. I don't care. Let me get into this topic here. This is a pretty big one. Yesterday, Stephen A. Smith brought a piece of information to my attention that I was unaware of, and as a matter of fact, Stephen A. Smith, this show he produced on it, ended up generating already 500,000 views. So Stephen A. Smith is bringing in major numbers. So anyway, what happened? Stephen A. Smith was reacting to a story that came out surrounding former ESPN employee Mark Jackson. As you guys know, when Mark Jackson was let go of by ESPN, I was one of the people that was basically saying I didn't like that decision. I liked the job that Mark Jackson and Jeff Van Gundy was doing. Now, I want to quickly read from the Daily Mail. There's so many articles. I just want to read from this one. It says, Mark Jackson loses job calling Knicks games after team bans him from playing as franchise president Leon Rose blocks arrangement. It continues on. Mark Jackson has lost his job as a fill-in Knicks broadcaster for this season, according to a new report. Jackson, who was drafted by the franchise in 1987, was reportedly set to call some games for his old franchise on MSG Network this season after being laid off by ESPN. But according to the New York Post, the arrangement will not go ahead after team president Leon Rose banned Jackson from traveling on the team plane. It continues on. According to unnamed sources cited in the report, the decision was made partly because of Jackson's history with Knicks assistant Darren Erman, who he previously fired from his staff in Golden State in 2014. It also goes on to say a few other things. Jackson also would have been prohibited from traveling on the team bus and staying in the team hotel. The team's other broadcasters are permitted to travel with the team. The former guard, who was meant to call Knicks games this season when Clyde Frazier was off, including the team's upcoming 5-game road trip. Erman was fired from Jackson's Golden State staff after reportedly secretly recording conversations between coaches and players, ESPN said at the time, alongside Knicks play-by-play man Mike Breen and former Knicks coach Jeff Van Gundy. Jackson was previously part of ESPN's NBA Finals crew. The article then goes on to say a few other things. So this news comes out, right? This news comes out, and Stephen A. Smith, who knows Mark Jackson and all of the people involved, I assume, he took to the Stephen A. Smith show, and he totally went off. He was dropping he seemed like he lost it. And to me, it was a show of passion and frustration for what Mark Jackson was going through. And Mark Jackson actually put out a statement, and we'll play some of it throughout the audio, where he said that he was the one that turned down the Knicks job, and he didn't appreciate how he's constantly being attacked and his legacy is being tarnished by unnamed sources, because they don't really go into that. So what we want to do is want to play exactly what Stephen A. Smith said on his show about the situation with Mark Jackson. I want you guys to listen to it in its entirety, and then we're going to come back and give you guys our thoughts. Take a listen to what Stephen A. Smith had to say here.
When an inordinate amount of cuts took place and people were laid off, he was one of those casualties. Well, he's made news for another reason. Because Mark Jackson was supposed to be calling games, that is, for the MSG networks. But it didn't happen. It was planned for Jackson to help fill in for Walt Clyde Frazier when he had nights off. And because that didn't transpire as people expected, there were numerous reports out that Mark Jackson had been fired. He had accepted the job. He was going to be calling games for the New York Knicks. And then all of a sudden, something must have happened. So Mark Jackson is not going to be calling games in place of Walt Clyde Frazier on the New York Knicks. Well, that's according to reports. That's according to reporters and news publications. I'd rather hear from Mark Jackson himself. And so should you.
Come on, man. Come on. At some point, the lies have got to stop. The lies have got to stop. I've sat back
year after year after year, listening to lies, questioning me as a man and my integrity, what I stand for, what I was raised on, has been questioned. I sat back and didn't say anything. My guy, the coach, the legend, Coach Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, has a great quote that I listened to just recently. He said he lost the address to the high road. I'm not there yet, but I'm getting closer, because there's a side of me that's fed up, that's upset that you keep on smearing my name. Today a report came out that I was fired or dismissed from calling Knick games. Honored and privileged to have an offer bestowed upon me to back up the legend Walt Clyde Frazier calling Knick games. Over a week ago, I turned that job down. You heard what I said. More than a week ago, I turned the job down due to the fact that it wasn't the ideal conditions and it wasn't the ideal time for me.
You know, in the interest of full disclosure, because we have an obligation to be responsible at all times to the best of our ability, particularly when you've been in this business as long as I have. So the first order of business is to say that Mark Jackson is not only a former colleague, he's a friend. I've known him for many years. I wasn't blessed and fortunate enough to know him when I was growing up in Hollis, Queens, New York, and he was right down the block near Murdoch Avenue in O'Connell Park, where he grew up just a few blocks away. I looked up to him. I was never the player that he was. I was never the basketball mind that he was. And everybody has to find their own way. But one of the greatest honors of my career is that I've come to know him and to be able to call him a friend. So I will openly confess to you, to everybody out there, that, yeah, you can accuse me of a bit of bias. Fair enough. But what's happening to him and what has been happening to him is utter and y'all are full of and you know exactly who the hell I'm talking to when I say that. Every chance you get, you throw out rumors about him. And I'm not going to even denigrate or sully his name by bringing up what those rumors have been over the years. It spanned years. Nobody ever takes the time to say, well, if it were true, even if those rumors were true, oh, it was years ago. It was years ago. Now, I remember when he got fired from the Golden State Warriors. And there's not much shade we can throw on the Golden State Warriors because the successor was Steve Kerr, who happens to be one of the top 5 coaches in the history of basketball so far as I'm concerned. But you got people who despised Mark Jackson, who would tell you Klay Thompson and Steph Curry may have never been what they ultimately became had it not been for Mark Jackson and the tutelage he provided and how it set the stage for Steve Kerr to piggyback off of and ultimately elevate not just the franchise, not just them, but himself to astronomical heights as a coach and a basketball mind in the game of basketball. And no shade on Steve Kerr whatsoever for another reason. The man was a champion before he got to Golden State. He was a champion as a player in Chicago. He was a champion as a player in San Antonio. And if Tom Thibodeau had listened to him, if Mike D'Antoni had listened to him and allowed Tom Thibodeau to come to Phoenix and be the defensive coordinator when Steve Kerr was running basketball operations in Phoenix, Phoenix might have won the title one year with Amari Stoudemire and the Matrix, Sean Marion and Steve Nash and all of those brothers. They might have done it, but it didn't happen. I say all of that to say ain't no problem. Nobody's trying to throw any shade on Steve Kerr whatsoever. But there's something to be said about somebody teaching you how to crawl and walk before you ultimately learn to run and sprint. And that is what Mark Jackson did. For a lot of other people, it would have been enough to get another job. But for somehow, some way, for some reason, Mark Jackson gets ostracized. It really pisses me off. It really does. Because it's grotesquely unfair. This man, 98 and 66, his last 2 seasons coaching in Golden State, 2012 to 2014, and can't get another job all of these years? Really? But nobody wants to bring that up because every time he comes close, it could be Sacramento, it could be New York, it could be somewhere. There's always some damn rumor that's coming out. Did it ever occur to some of you people out there? What if people like myself and others who covered the NBA for the last quarter century started putting out the rumors that are out there about other people? Ladies and gentlemen, I know people who've been accused of some unsavory things that are working in professional basketball. I know somebody that was fired. I take that back. I know several people who were fired for having adulterous affairs. And somebody grabbed them and gives them life and ultimately elevate them. I know people that are working in professional sports right now that have been accused of some of the most egregious things that were unlawful, that harmed other human beings. And they've been on camera talking to y'all, and y'all have no idea about them, but we do. By we, I mean those of us who cover the league. I'm getting sick and damn tired.
So you heard what Stephen A. Smith had to say. I want to react to what he had to say. First of all, it seemed like Stephen A. Smith could go a lot further into what he was saying, but decided not to. He brought up some good points, which was this. He said that he knows of many people that are still employed within the NBA ecosystem in the sports world who have done a lot of questionable things, but their business has never been brought to the forefront. But for whatever reason, there seems to be this persistent attack on Mark Jackson. For those of you who may be unaware, there have been a lot of NBA coaching openings over the last, 10 years, right? And there's been a lot of positions that seem suitable for Mark Jackson where a lot of people have said, hey, why doesn't Mark Jackson get this coaching job or even get the interview? And all you see is case after case of Mark Jackson not even being mentioned for interviews. And a lot of us have been asking the question, is Mark Jackson being blackballed? And if he is being blackballed, why? Some people have said one of the reasons he's been blackballed because of his religious stance. I think he's an avid Christian. Other people have said is because of his coaching style. He coaches guys very hard. Other people have said for other reasons. But to Stephen A. Smith's point, is Mark Jackson the only controversial figure? And I'm not saying he's controversial. I'm just saying controversial based on these things that are being said. I'm not calling him a controversial person. But to make the point, is he the only one that has some drama around him? Stephen A. Smith certainly seems to feel otherwise. To me, to see Mark Jackson himself come out there and put out that statement and basically try to shut down these reports, it seems like someone is after Mark Jackson. Now, who this someone is, I have no idea. I wish Stephen A. Smith would have gone further and started listing some of these people that he believes are working behind the scenes to tarnish the legacy of Mark Jackson, because I don't know who they are. I really don't. I wish I did know, but I'm not connected like that. To me, it's a shame. It's a shame because I think that he is very good at what he does. Again, let me reiterate my original stance. I didn't like the fact that he was removed from ESPN, and we recently published a show, that was centered on an article. Let me see if I can pull it up here because it would surprise you guys. Yes, this article was actually a front office article, and the article said this. It says ESPN financial successes raises questions about cost cutting and layoffs. This was an article that was published on November 13th from Front Office Sports. Essentially what this article is saying, and I'm just going to quickly breeze through it, ESPN has long portrayed financial struggles to its 5,000 employees. This last decade has seen multiple rounds of layoffs, including the departure of big-name talents such as Jeff Van Gundy, Keyshawn Johnson, Suzy Colbert, Max Kellerman. This summer, remaining on-air talents have accepted smaller raises or even salary cuts. Staffers behind the scenes were told to cover games remotely and limit or eliminate travel. But Disney could fetch $25 billion or more by selling ESPN. For the second time in recent weeks, the Mouse House gave possible investors a peek under the hood at ESPN's financials. It then continues on. It says, during the fourth quarter, listen to this. During the fourth quarter, Disney reported ESPN's operating income surged 16% to $987 million off of 3.5 billion in revenue. In a previous SEC filing, Disney revealed Bristol delivered 2.9 billion in profits off 16 billion in revenue to Burbank's coffers in fiscal 2022. The network's profits have grown for 2 straight fiscal years. Some former ESPNers resent the billions in profits siphoned out of Bristol over the years. Others believe they paid with their jobs for mistakes made by Disney 3,000 miles away. This year, returning Disney chairman Bob Iger announced his plan to slash 7,000 jobs with the goal of $5.5 billion in costs. It then says this: a lot of employees are asking, "What the f?" complained one ex-ESPNer. We were told eternally, don't travel, no Christmas parties, and lay off and lay off and lay off. Then you see the numbers and you learn we earned $3 billion. So to me, maybe there was a way to keep him after all. But to me, it seems like there's something more going on here. And I wish that whoever had the information would reveal it, because ultimately it would give Mark Jackson the justice he deserves. Because now it's to the point where he is coming out and putting out public statements.